When it comes to modern poker icons, you don't get more rock and roll than Tom Dwan. When we first started releasing our I Am High Stakes Poker videos, the feedback was unanimous. We want Tom. We want Tom. Well, here he is. Tom, how's life?
Too much poker, not enough sleep this last week, but that's normal. We're at the end of the Triton series, so that's how it normally goes.
And we're in Montenegro. Where does Montenegro stand in terms of places that you like to play and hang out in?
I think it's probably either my favorite or second favorite. Here in London, I mean, Vegas is great too. But I was just explaining to you that I really like the aspect of getting to play and then being able to walk outside and see this scenery and have, a day on the beach or whatever. This last week I haven't done any of that. I've just been playing Tritons all day. So, but sometimes if there's games here over the summer and stuff, there'll be more of that where it's play for 3 days and then have a beach day or something, and that's nice.
Yeah, this one has been a particularly
this one has been
brutal in a good way, but very exhausting on everybody concerned, I think.
Yeah, and there were different different groups of cash games. It was a lot of, for me, a lot of work, not enough sleep. And I didn't even win. So
no, that makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Going back to the beginning in a chronological order of things. When you was in school, how did Tom Dwan fit into that kind of like rigid structure, rules-orientated educational system?
I think for me, I've always, I think I told you this before, but I can follow and respect and stuff some rules, but my thing is I always got to say why. And if there's not a good answer for the why, I just, I don't like it. And so I think in school I sometimes ran into some issues there. The classes I'd like or the things I enjoyed, I would sometimes learn a bit, sometimes do well in the classes. But I remember like math, they said, here's the way you need to do this problem. And I said, why? And they were like, you might not always have a calculator on you. It's like, but yeah, I think we will. I don't know how the world's gonna pan out, but I think we will. And like, come on, I'm getting the right answer. And
yeah, you're not that old, Tom. I mean, I'm sure we had the internet and mobile phones and stuff, innit? So you're quite right there. Those are ridiculous things to say, aren't they?
Well, but I think I've always been a why person. I don't, I'll follow some stuff for a while, but if it's longer term for me, I'm like, well, why do I need to do this way? Like the math thing in school was, showing my work a certain way or something. And I was like, I got the right answer. This should count, and I think I had a bit of that in my life, which is probably a large part of why I stumbled on, found poker, and it worked good for me to more like make a lot more of my own choices, as opposed to following some structure that maybe, some parts of it I'd have trouble with.
It seems like a really positive quality though. I mean, I got 2 kids and they always go through this, the 18-year-old went through this phase, and I'm sure my 2-year-old will, of why? And at some point, society seems to kick that out of a lot of kids, doesn't it? It's like, stop asking these questions.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair take, and for me, I can deal with some rules for a while, but long term, I like to have something make sense to me. If I'm, I'm gonna go that way, and I guess with poker, you're answering your own. Why am I going to this game or that game or learning this new game? Or I've always liked something about the freedom that comes with it, trying to make my own choices, find my own path, that kind of stuff.
I always remember reading a great book by Robert Fritz called The Path of Least Resistance, and when I hear you talk, it reminds me of the vast majority of society head down in the herd, doing what we're supposed to do, and a few outliers going, hang on a minute, I think I'll go that way. you certainly went that way, but where did that, can you remember any early realizations that you were going to be different?
I guess even when you say that, I don't view it really as that I'm different, but I mean, I obviously do have such a unique kind of life path. So, I guess just to me, I always would kind of look at things and say, why do I need to do them a certain way? And sometimes there'd be a good answer, and then you need to do them a certain way. But yeah, for some reason, poker just fit for me, where it was, yeah.
So it wasn't like when I grew up, I remember thinking, I don't want a job. I don't want a boss. Like, it was really important to me that I didn't have it. Was it like that for you, or did you just fall in love with this game so much that you couldn't see anything else other than that?
No, so for me, I don't mind like taking direction to a point or something like that, if it seems reasonable. So I think what I would have said then would have been something like, I don't want a boss that's not reasonable or that's not smart. Yeah. But sometimes my tolerance for that stuff can be surprisingly low, you know. And yet other times I can be in a game where some businessman wants me to play for 40 hours and just deal with it because I'm like, oh, it's a good game. That's okay. Yeah. So I don't know exactly how my mind works on that stuff, but.
Can you remember when the time came, the crunch time came, where you're, I don't know, 18, 19, 20, and you're studying and you're thinking, well, am I going to carry on with my studies, or am I going to give this poker thing a shot, or am I going to get a job? What was happening around that time period?
So I put, halfway through my senior year of high school, I put $50 online. And by the end of the summer, by the start of the summer, I think I had made 10 or 15,000 or something like that. And I remember I wanted to get a shore house, a Jersey shore house, with some of my high school buddies for like a week. It was a week or 2 weeks or something. And I remember my mom saying, like, you know, you gotta go get a job and then you can use that money. And obviously I put my $50 online, I made like 15,000, and I was like, oh, I got, here's shore house money.
Yeah.
And then I think I made a little money that's, you know, maybe it was 30 by the end of the summer or something. And then I went to school, to college. I went to Boston University. And my freshman year, there were so many things I really liked about it socially. There were interesting things of, you know, I grew up in New Jersey, now I'm in Boston. You know, I think the city of Boston, especially as like a young college student, has such a unique culture. And there was a lot of stuff I liked about that experience, and then I also liked some of my classes, but the ones I didn't like, I just didn't, you know, keep my grades up in and stuff, didn't show up for the classes sometimes, didn't show up for the tests sometimes. And at the end of my freshman year, I had to go to some summer school thing because I like hadn't shown up for some English class stuff and whatever. And I don't remember exactly, but I think I probably made 80,000 or something by that point, which was a decent sum, but also not like drop out of college, go on a completely different life path.
Yeah.
Kind of money. And so I was doing the whole show up to my classes in the summer and stuff, but I was playing more and more poker. And I remember there was a time I played mainly $2, $4, so a $400 buy-in. And I just really sat down and was like, okay, I need to just win some silly amount of money so that I feel okay with this thing. And I think I won like 250 or 300 buy-ins, so like 120K or 100K or something at just $2, $4. And then by then I was playing a little bigger stakes at the end. But basically I won a number where I looked at the number of buy-ins. I think it was Poker Tracker back then.
Yeah, I was going to say Poker Tracker or Hold'em Manager, right?
And I was like, okay, wow, you know, I think I could go down this path. Yeah, kind of didn't look back from there.
What was it like back then? I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask you was, when was the when was the easiest money you ever made? I mean, what was it like back then? I mean, it sounds incredible.
Well, I think there were a lot less resources. So you had to figure more things out on your own, which was harder in some respects, but also the competition, partly because of there being a lot less resources, was a lot lower level. So I don't think that would really be, I haven't played $2, $4 online in a while.
A long
but I don't think
time.
that'd be very, very doable today. You know, back then I think the games were much softer, if you really applied yourself, kind of thing. And I don't know.
And I guess that trait of always asking why in school now suddenly becomes vital. Now you're playing poker, right?
Yeah, I think that's something that served me pretty well as a, probably in life overall, but especially as a gambler. That, like, I think that's one of the more important parts of gambling, is like, all right, what games am I going to focus on? What am I going to study? Okay, what things am I doing right? What things is my opponent doing wrong? What things am maybe I doing wrong? You know. So yeah.
I interviewed two of your good buddies this week, Peter Jetton and Gabe Podgorski, and I asked them a question. They both gave me the same answer, and it was, how did you learn? What was the best form of learning back then? And they both said that it started out in the forums, and then led to a physical meetup in Vegas, and then boom from there. Was your journey the same, similar thing as to Peter and Gabe?
I met them, you know, probably right around when they both met. Like, I think we all met each other just about the same time, and those things they were saying, I would say, really helped me. But I think I had probably done a little bit more of my own learning and stuff at that point already. So I remember I met Dave Benefield, actually. He was here.
Yeah, he's here. Yeah.
And then there was, I think it was 2+2, I think there was this meetup thing in Vegas that Dave was going to, but I don't know if I even had a 2+2 account at that point. And anyway, somehow Dave convinced me, and I went and then met Peter and all those guys. I don't know if Dave knew Peter and them first. I think maybe not.
I think Dave convinced Peter to go.
I think I spent a ton of time and work and stuff getting a bit better, kind of on my own, trying to figure things out. And then with a lot less time and effort talking to you know, other people that were pretty good at poker and pretty smart, you were able to learn so much faster, so much quicker. So yeah, I think I had a bit of success when that stuff already happened, but it was like, I would say I was maybe playing quite soft competition. So I was a little better than the soft competition, but I didn't, you know, the getting pretty good at the game kind of stuff happened from talking to other people and all that.
Yeah, I think Gabe said when he got there were definitely different levels. Gabe was like, I was at this level, and then there was Tom and I at this level, you know. But it was great that everybody was there helping each other out. You think about the old school pros in the time when the whole camp first came out, refusing to go on TV shows because they didn't want to show their game to anybody, and then here you all are talking and sharing your game. Was there a part of it that was like, what am I doing here? I need to keep a little bit. I'll share like 80% and keep a little bit myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was pretty hesitant to share stuff for a while, but in time I got to, like Phil Galfond, I talked to a lot back in the day. There were a few people I trusted quite a bit that I thought were really smart people. You know, and like Phil and I ended up playing a ton of hands together for a few years online. But I think I felt like he was him, and then Z and Hack Dang, like You're in Danger and Trex was their online names. But I felt like they were they were pretty honest. So even if I gave them a tip and they made some money versus me, I didn't feel like they were trying to be sneaky or something. And I think I've seen that a lot where people, I see at the poker table someone asking their buddy for tips, but actually they're like fishing for information and stuff like that. But,
They're not going to give
I
it
got
back.
lucky that I had a few friends where it wasn't really like that. So.
Yeah, everybody's scratching, like a win-win kind of situation type of thing.
Well, I'm saying I think I've seen a lot of them where it's one person
way,
wins and the other loses.
Yeah.
I see that all the time. And I think there were a few people that I became friendly with that I thought it was a more mutual, like they were being more honest, sharing some tips, that kind of stuff.
If you think about what we've just said here, it's quite remarkable. Tom Dwan, Phil Galfond, Peter Jedden, Gabe Patgorski, David Benefield, we probably could go on and on and on. You all ended up in the same place at the same time learning the game. I mean, when you talk about, I think last time I spoke to you, and I was saying about how your life turned out, you quite rightly said to me, it could have been completely different. I could have joined it, I could have got into the game 10 years later and the games could have been a lot tougher. I mean, do you look back at that moment and think, wow, that was destiny, that was luck? I mean...
I think the time I got into the game was pretty lucky, but those people that I ended up being friendly with, I think that was more likely to happen. There's like a good group of guys that were starting to play at a similar time I was. So I don't know, that one doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of, at that time, a lot of the poker pros would meet each other multiple times throughout the year. That's when Full Tilt and Stars were throwing so much money in the tournaments so it was like, I don't know, I guess I look at that as a little more, not inevitable, but like a little more likely to have happened one way or the other. But something about the concept, I guess, of like, as a gambler, it's important to like, maybe not take advantage of your friends or something like that. I don't know, but I think something of that concept is probably why I got some buddies that like, I might beat Peter or Gabe for some real big bet somewhere or, play against them in a real big game, but like, I won't say to them, oh, I think you're good at this game, come play, and then take off. I don't know, something like that.
As that core group, you've said there that you were very good at working on your own and figuring out things yourself and doing the work yourself. And then you met these guys and you were also good at like coexisting within a group and learning off each other. As you evolved and got better and better and the years went by, how did that kind of level itself out in terms of how you learned the game?
What do you mean?
Did you continue more like on a solo route, figuring things out the same, or did you always have a strong group of people around you that you would talk hands about? Because a lot of people I speak about in that seat, and I say to them, what was one of the best ways of learning poker? A lot of them always say talking poker with other people, or talking poker with people better than me. But what if there's not?
I don't think the better than you is that important.
Right.
I think it's talking poker with people that are pretty smart.
Right.
That's important. Because even if maybe you're a little better than someone else at the game, there's still going to be stuff they're better at than you. And so if you have like some amount of humility and have decent enough communication, then you can learn from each other, But yeah, I think, like there were times, I remember playing Gabe back in the day, he played some 200, 400 PLO, and obviously then I wasn't giving him like advice, or he wasn't giving me advice, we were trying to take each other's money.
Yeah.
But I remember, because I think I didn't know him that well then or something, but he like lost some, and then I think he lost some, or maybe he won. Whatever, there was someone like this, it was maybe Gabe, one of our buddies that like, I think lost a few buy-ins back, and then they were like, hey, I'm gonna play some smaller, how'd you think I played? And so then that was like, there's not really a competition going on here, like, and it was someone who had gotten like a little unlucky, and I was like, oh, I think you ran pretty bad, you played fine, something like that. Yeah, I guess if people are trying to be cool about it, then it's a lot easier. If Gabe had asked me that and the next day he showed back up in the games, I might have been a little irked if I was like, oh, here's something I think you're doing wrong, and then he's playing me the next day. I'd be like, what is this? But so I think it kind of, over time, you figure out the people that seem to be trying to be themselves, be pretty honest, you know, and then it can be mutually beneficial. You know, you can learn from your friends, they can learn from you, that kind of stuff. Even though sometimes, obviously, if I'm sitting there at the same table as Peter or Gabe, we're not saying like, we're not, you know, I'm not saying, oh, Peter, here's a read I noticed on you. I'm like, I'm going to use that read and take his chips, you know?
Yeah.
But then if at the end of some tournament he's like, oh, I keep losing every day, I guess I'm going to, I might be like, hey, man, every time you have aces, you go like this, you know? But
What did you think of the prevalence of online training sites then?
I mean, Phil Galfond decided to go make everyone good. I think
Yeah, I mean, it was,
already done
was
that.
it, I remember when I joined and I Googled like best players in the world and Phil come up and he had Blue Fire Poker at the time and then run it once. I mean, judging by what you were saying, I have a feeling you might not be a best fan.
I mean, I think in some respects, it was probably pretty inevitable that that stuff was happening, and I don't know. I don't know what I think about it. I mean, I think it's good that people have the option to learn more about something they're interested in if they want, but I also, this whole concept of like poker being a sport, you know, that people tried to say and stuff, I don't agree with that. I think it's a game. And I think there's like basically two groups of people. You got a group of people there to make money, and you got a group of people there for enjoyment. And a lot of people are somewhere in the middle, but I think, you know, if you have too much of a race to the bottom of everyone trying to find every last tool they can, that can kind of mess up the game or the economy and stuff a little bit. You know, you don't want it to turn into chess where there's just no money and everybody like.
Well, now we got solvers and everybody's plugging their hands into solvers and.
Yeah, so I think that it's kind of on the organizations to, you know, and here I think Triton has some of responsibility. Don't know exactly. There's no easy answers yet, but of trying to set up a good structure that's just trying to be cool effectively. And you're always going to make mistakes. You're not going to get things perfect. But I think you want to keep that, you know, environment where it doesn't feel like some people have no chance and some people, you know, I think like full ring, no limit turned into that for a while where if you had recreational players playing, it seemed like they had almost no chance because it just the mechanics of the game, the equities, people had studied so much. But I got some ideas, so we'll see.
I was going to say, you make an interesting point because actually everybody at Triton who sits down at the table does think they have a chance.
Well, in any one tournament, obviously that's always true, but I think it's also just, you want to kind of keep everyone's interests in mind, you know, meaning you don't, I think sometimes there's been a tendency of the loudest voices get heard a little more, and the loudest voices are going to be the people trying to make money, you know, and trying to push for their own opinions, but then you might lose the businessman, and that's something that's happened in a lot of tournament series and a lot of poker games, and then all of a sudden everything dries up, and you'd rather have a bigger pie and have a smaller piece of it or whatever.
I guess short deck is an evolution of that, right? Is people thinking, I don't know, how do we take care of everybody in our little part of the ecosystem?
Well, short deck was just a game that came up in China where, you know, this guy was frustrated that he was losing, and so he took out the 2, 3, 4, 5. I think he took out the 6. I think he took out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then at some point they put the 6 back in. But I think that kind of stuff makes sense, you know, just change it up a little bit. And, you know, I'd still generally bet on the pros and a new game kind of thing, but it's just makes it a more friendly environment and stuff, so.
Has it got to the point where it's become so much more than you just tune up and play in a poker game? Like, is there a responsibility, feel a responsibility to make sure that everything around you, the environment and the structure, everything works so there is a game that you can play in. Because I'm sure there are people that just rock up and play. Are you one of those, or are you one that's kind of like, hang on a minute now, we need to look longer term? And have you been doing that?
What do you mean?
Say like Andrew Robles' game, for example. You know, I'm sure he's like, at one point he was just somebody who came and played a game, and then it was like, okay, I need to think about how this is going to be sustainable going forward. Are you someone who takes a vested interest in that? Like almost like looking after your part of the poker community?
Yeah, I think I care about kind of, I mean, I always say that being cool, maybe there's some better words I could use, but just trying to have an awareness of different people's interests and a more sustainable, situation, especially if I like the people. But, practically that doesn't always
It sounds really challenging.
pan out. Yeah. Can be.
And when it comes to, we talked a little bit about Phil Galfon's journey in the online coaching and stuff. Not just in poker, I'm not just talking about poker here now, but are you the type of person who would hire a coach or did hire coaches in the past?
No, I've never had a coach. Sorry. Don't worry. But I've talked to friends a lot and stuff, but I don't know, I've just never had a situation where I really trusted it, kind of thing. It would need to be a situation where I thought someone was way better than me at a game and I trusted that they would give me, actual honest advice and stuff. But I've had a lot of times where I thought friends were almost as good as me or a little better than me or same level, and we talked back and forth. And obviously generally that's if you're playing that person every day, that gets a little weird. But, often you do that in a situation where it's with someone you're not playing that often.
What about the mental side of things? Like these days people hire people like Jared Tendler and Elliot Rowe to help them deal with tilt and that kind of thing, meditation and that kind of stuff. How have you been on, how do you calm yourself, and have you ever explored that area of your game?
I think there's a lot to learn from meditation or meditation-like things, or kind of like stuff like calming your brain. But I don't think I've ever really focused on that stuff that much, how it relates to poker. I think I've more done it how it relates to life, and then that ends up helping the poker. I guess I learned from Roble. Everyone always said the Roble walk.
The Roble walk?
Yeah, meaning when Roble would lose a big pot or two, he would just go for a walk. And people would laugh at him for it. And I remember I used to laugh at him for it and sometimes give him a hard time. But I think when you're especially if you're in a bunch of really funny situations, so I had laughed at that back in the day when I was playing a lot of PLO all the time in a similar structure, and all of a sudden when we were playing short deck, I was like, well, what do I do with this hand? And I started learning from the Roble walk, and I'd go for a little walk for a minute,
Right,
like,
to figure things out.
This is a whole new game. What's going on here? So.
The Roble walk. And going back a little bit to when you realise that, hang on, this poker thing's working here, you've had a good push on 2-4 and you started to make the money. At that time, and probably when you were younger, what were your beliefs and your thoughts around money and making money back then, and how has that changed as you've evolved through life?
I don't know exactly, but something like, this is an imperfect world, obviously, in so many ways, but it may not be a perfect system, but I haven't heard of a better one than a capitalist system of like, yeah, it's got its flaws, but there's a reason things are like this. Because there's no, there aren't perfect answers and stuff. And getting some more money gives you more options to whatever that may be, to use that money in ways you choose to affect change, do some good, have a stay at a mon, whatever, like, and I guess being able to make some money doing something I liked, at least some of the time. I'm not saying I like poker when I've been up 30 hours and I'm in some poker game, but overall, it's it's worked for me or fit for me. So.
Was you ever one of those kids that wanted more? It was like, one day I'm going to be a millionaire. I want to be a millionaire. I want money. And then they talk about the plateau, right? So I can't remember what the figure is, but is it 250 grand a year or something you earn? You get excited and you want, every time you earn more and more until you hit 250k, and then it's just like, no more amount of money is going to increase my happiness. I mean, you've obviously gone over that barrier. So how does it feel as you earn more money?
Well, for me, it's more of like playing poker and stuff is more of a means to an end of like, there are things I'd like more money for. And so, I don't know, I happen to, if I've been playing 30 hours and I ask myself, why am I playing this game often? It's like, well, I think it's worth enough to be worth another coffee and push a few more hours because I can use that money later, kind of thing. I don't know how to explain that great, but, and if I haven't played for a week or two, a lot of times I enjoy playing. There's stuff about it I like. Like I said, if I'm pulling a bunch of 30, 40-hour days in a row, then often then that's a little more, I'm pushing myself that much for the money kind of thing. But I guess the way it all balances out to me is that overall I don't mind, the downsides of the costs of it are less than the gains to me. So, I mean, if you catch me on a real big losing day, I might not feel that way, but usually.
There's a great book called Conscious Capitalism by John Mackey, who created Whole Foods. And it just goes through how capitalism can be used for good if there's some conscious reasons why you're in the money and what you're going to do with it. And I know I've spoken to you before and you've alluded on it that you'd like to talk about it more in the future, but you're not just earning money just because you want to buy yourself a lot of shit, right? I mean, you are interested in making a change in the world as well, right, Tom?
There's a few things I'd like to give a shot at someday, we'll see.
What does freedom mean to you?
I don't know exactly, but I like it. I think at least for me, the more freedom I have to make my own choices, stuff like that, makes me happier. I like it. I think that's probably some of why I'll push myself for a long poker session, or why I've studied hard in the past. I'm sure I will again, because I'm like, well, sacrifice some freedom for these days of play nonstop or whatever it may be, study a ton, and hopefully some things come of it that, get more freedom in the future in this area, or more money that you can use in some way. I don't know, something like that. I don't know if I got it that clear in my head, so I can't explain it great, probably. But
there's a paradox in this somewhere, because has there ever been a time when you've been chained to the game, and you've not liked it?
Yeah, I guess there were probably times where I felt like I really had to grind, not as much from my own choosing, and that's a little more upsetting. But if I'm choosing to, then yeah, I'm all right with it.
Has there ever been a time where you thought your career would end, that you worried about poker not being there for you, or not being the right path for you at a particular time?
I think not too significantly, kind of thing. I mean, obviously there's times where I have some big losses or something, and in that moment you're not, cranky about it or whatever, not happy about it. But I don't think really, no.
So we're saying, like, for most of the time in your career, things have been pretty okay?
Well, I don't think I've really questioned the choice of playing poker that much and stuff, Sometimes I wished, like, oh man, I wish I had a smaller piece, or I wish I had risked a few less buy-ins there, or stuff like that. But
and you spend an inordinate amount of time playing poker. I mean, what does poker teach you about life?
Well, there's times I spend an inordinate amount of time playing poker, but there's also times I don't play any for a month. And so I think I like something about that. I like being able to, choose when I'm working some amount, right? And so the freedom that comes with that and stuff, I think that's one of the reasons poker worked for me. What it taught me about life is, I think I've learned some ways to assess information from poker. I think people could use a little more of that. Our society could use a little more of that. And it basically, maybe one of the biggest, maybe the biggest lesson I've learned from poker is like, you're not always going to be right, and anyone who thinks they're always going to be right is, full of shit. They're not going to. I want to bet against that guy at the poker table if they think they've figured it all out. And I think that's kind of a cool concept because it's true in a lot of walks of life that a lot of times there's not. The best you can do is give it a good guess and try to hope it works out and accept if it doesn't. But yeah, I think a lot of people. When it comes to assessing information, oversimplify a little bit. And I think you can see that in like political things going on. You can see it in a lot of different, just a lot of people, kind of don't sit back and say, oh, I'm not really sure of this one. That's confusing. People don't like that. They try to get an answer.
It's like black or white.
Yeah, I mean, it's even if you talk about, for example, in the U.S., like the political polarization, it's like people that are more conservative, right-leaning, watch more conservative, right-leaning TV. People that are more, liberal, left-leaning, whatever you want to call it, watch more left-leaning TV. And it's, instead of saying like, oh, I wonder what's wrong on this side, I wonder what's wrong on that side, more people are like, oh yeah, this is what's right, and not kind of questioning or realizing the stuff they might be, maybe can't be sure of or stuff like that. And that's something you learn in poker is like all the time you can't be sure of something. When you think you have someone's strategy figured out, often they surprise you,
It's like, it sounds like deep reflection added to that why again, and a little bit of, like, you have an inquisitive mind, right?
Well, but I think I'm more saying it's just a concept or at least people learn if they're good poker players, is that you get a little better at assessing information, and one of the things you learn is that you don't know for sure. And like inevitably people win a few tournaments or have a few wins in cash games and they think they have it figured out, but usually that doesn't last unless they're sitting there saying, oh yeah, I'm not really sure, but here's what I think, People that really think they got it all figured out often, have a slide kind of thing.
So you said that you when you play, but there's you might not play for a month or so. So what are you doing when you're not playing? What are the type of things you're interested in? What are you reading? That type of stuff.
What am I reading? Oh, I don't know. Varies. I think it depends what. Sometimes I'll get a little burned out if I've played really long times. Sometimes I'll want to take time off. Sometimes it'll just be there's not great games. Sometimes have some life stuff, family stuff come up, or sometimes focus in other areas. In the last few years, I've started having more of my work time. It used to be almost all my work time was in poker, and now I'm starting to do a little bit more work outside poker, which I like. It's neat.
Yeah, you were saying you've been dragged more to metro gaming these days and doing more on that kind of part of the business here.
Yeah, that even I'm trying to help plan some got a few concepts for Triton that might pan out. Maybe doing some cool kind of new tournament concepts that I'm sure there'll be hiccups, but maybe something cool ends up coming out of it. And I think I like that. I like brainstorming new ideas. And also then I am happy to get back. If I haven't played poker for 2 weeks,
Yeah,
then
get
I
back into
enjoy it again, you know, for the first. If I'm playing poker every day for a month, by the end of it, I'm like, I don't want to see a poker table.
So are you a CEO type, or are you a
Definitely
here's the money,
Oh
get
my-
on with it?
No, I'm like, I think I could be, you know, be a decent chairman of the board type, but I am not that you want to short that company if I'm the CEO. I'm just, even thinking of strategies in poker, for example, I can be quite good at refining other people's strategies or catching the gaps in theirs, but when I come up with my own, inevitably I'll do some ridiculously goofy stuff that's like, you know, really wildly not right. Usually I'll try to be decent at catching it. You know, noticing when I'm like, oh, someone else, oh man, this thing I was doing, someone just got me twice. Like,
But you're testing, you're trying.
Right, but I'm saying some people are much better at, for example, a CEO type, where you'd want someone to have much more reasonable structures and plans. I'd need to think with short deck some of the ones I came up with, some of the strategies I came up with. There was a time where I was playing short deck. You know, I first started playing short deck in 2016, I think. So it was really before people got in the game. And there was quite a long chunk where I would say I was quite a bit better. You know, like there weren't many pros that had played a lot online and stuff that were in short deck. And I would say I was quite a bit better than the people I was playing, probably just about anyone that was playing the game for a while. Probably till like a year and a half ago or something, where more, maybe 2 years ago, where more pros started coming in. Yeah. But anyway, some of the concepts I came up with were just, in hindsight, so stupid. And I'm still doing all right and winning a bit of money and stuff. But yeah, I don't think I'm the CEO type guy.
You were saying the last time we spoke that you're not afraid of making mistakes. You're more afraid of not trying out something.
Yeah, but you don't want that as a CEO, right? You want that
No, but
no, that's right.
It's an
So
important
that's something that I think I actually make a lot of mistakes. Probably more than most of the people I'm playing against and stuff. And I think sometimes I'm quite good at figuring out new stuff that other people haven't, and I think I'm pretty decent at catching my mistakes. But sometimes I still make so many mistakes that it doesn't balance out. Sometimes it does, you know, so it depends.
Is that poker and life, catching your mistakes? And I'll have to add another question on that while you're thinking. And do you have a process in which you catch those?
I think trying to talk to other people. So in poker, other poker players, but poker you also see, you can more quickly see when you're like, oh, this must have been wrong. Someone just got me, and then go think about it. Life sometimes it's, you know, a little less apparent. I would say I'm decent when it comes to life at catching my mistakes. But yeah, I make a lot of them. I mean, how long were we supposed to do this interview? And I had too many things going on these days.
Yeah. What is it that people don't know about you? That, you know, the people see you. You know, people don't see much of you actually. You know, so there's a lot of assumptions about Tom, about, you know, about who you are because of what you are within poker. But what is it about you that people might not really know about?
That's a tough question, man. That's like, I feel like I need a time bank for that one. I need to come back in
Time
5
chip,
minutes.
time chip.
I don't know. I think I try to be pretty candid with, I mean, obviously there's some things, if I think everyone else is missing some poker strategy, I don't just share that on an interview or whatever. But overall, I think I've been pretty candid with how I think about life, about the game, about stuff like that. So nothing jumps out at me. I guess no, not much jumps out at me other than I think it's quite important, this kind of concept of, you know, you got people showing up to poker for enjoyment, and you got people showing up to make money, and then obviously a lot of people that are a combination of the two.
Yeah.
I think that's really kind of shaped a lot of my professional life, and I think that's something that, even though I've said that and some people have an idea, even people at this Triton stop, people I'm a bit friendly with, some of them don't quite realize how much I'm like, hey guys, like, we're all missing something here. We gotta, I don't have the answers, but we gotta make some changes, because a ton of people love gambling, love playing poker. It can be a cool mental thing, and it can be interesting and mentally stimulating. If people are going to gamble anyway, why don't you do it at poker instead of at blackjack or at baccarat or something? But you know, if you have people going and studying for 1,000 hours and some guy wants to show up and play 8-handed no limit hold'em, they're not going to like their experience. So you got to keep coming up with new stuff.
You do step up, don't you? I remember at the time of the old full tilt debacle, you know, when everybody was unsure about what was going on and nobody was saying anything from the full tilt side and everyone was panicking. You stood up.
Obviously, there was a lot of pressure around that situation on a lot of people, but I like the way I handled that stuff. I thought, you know, I tried to do my best or whatever. I'm sure, in hindsight, obviously, I could have done things even better and stuff, I'm sure, but I just tried to. I thought they could have. I thought Full Tilt could have done things a bit different. I thought they could have. Obviously, look, there were plenty of mistakes made before Black Friday, but I'm saying even the day after Black Friday, you know, I wish they had done things a little different. And when I felt like my opinion of that wasn't getting heard, then I tried to do what I could from my side. So, but
It did show a really endearing part of your character, though, because, you know, again, we go back to this right at the beginning of our talk, you know, the difference between a path of least resistance and carving out your own path. I mean, the path of least resistance, people would have just buried their head in the sand and just disappeared and not spoke about it, but you didn't do that.
yeah, I mean, I've made plenty of mistakes in life, but I try to, I don't know. I'm not too much of a path of least resistance kind of guy. I try to do what seems right to me, and all the time I do something that in hindsight was a mistake, or sometimes maybe I was an asshole, you know, and you need to say, oops, my bad. But you know, I'm not a least resistance kind of guy. I try to have an opinion, you know, if it seems like an important spot to have one. But that probably goes back some to the kind of like poker assessing information, you know, that kind of concept of like, okay, well, a lot of times you don't know the right answer, but, you know, if you don't know the right answer and someone's having a heart attack and someone else is like, I'm a cardiac surgeon, let me handle this, then yeah, you probably should. But if there's no one else to handle it, like someone's got to guess, you know.
And there'll be people watching this who are stuck on that path of least resistance. They'll be watching this because they want to be professional poker players. Now, we're not here to advocate whether you should be a professional poker player or not, but if you're stuck and can't be a professional poker player, you'll be stuck in life in other areas as well. What advice could you give to people to shift out of that societal conditioning kind of robot kind of life and to try to risk something different?
Well, I think we all, you know, I feel like most people I've met, there's something I could learn from them, or, you know, if I was in a good enough mood and paying attention, hopefully something I did learn. And all the time I'm tired or cranky or whatever, I just lost a big pot, so I don't, but I think we all have stuff we could learn from each other. And, you know, the piece of advice I give whenever people ask me on tips of how they could be better at poker is catch your mistakes. You know, don't be so afraid of making them. Like, everyone's so afraid of making mistakes. And I think that's not just in poker, I think it's in life. Like, we all make mistakes all the time. Maybe I make a few more than most people, but, you know, try to be a little aware of it. Like, that's what makes us human. We all make mistakes, you know. But yeah, I don't know. And
forget the full tilt thing is way gone, but you've now got back on the horse again and you stuck a patch on your arm and you're a Triton ambassador. What dragged you
I actually
out?
still got it on this shirt. It wouldn't, because I took it off some other shirt and there was like gunk all over it from the patch, so
See,
I got it
like
still stuck on this
You're such
thing.
a newbie ambassador. Why? What made you come out of retirement, ambassador retirement?
Well, I have, you know, this is something about Triton, right? You're asking me the question about Triton on the Triton interview, and I still don't have my answer. But I think that's kind of a good thing. It's like I've been pretty involved, you know, from the start.
Yeah.
Obviously, Richard and Paul are both good friends of mine. I think, you know, one of the things I said actually before doing this was like one of the conditions I had was basically I didn't want to just do the same formula everyone else has done that in my view hasn't really worked. Like tournament field sizes aren't growing, they're shrinking, and people aren't saying their experience is getting better, they're saying their experience is getting worse in tournaments. I don't have the answers, but sometimes I can put my finger on, oh, this thing doesn't seem right, let's try to figure out something to do. And I think that's what you're seeing, you know, like obviously all the time there might be some mistake here or something there, but I feel like Triton's trying to say like, all right, like how can we mix things up? How can we do things a little different? How can, oh, people are taking a little too long. All right, throw in a shot cock. Oh, you know, come up with new ideas and try to have the experience be nicer and better, and then hopefully the field sizes grow, and then the experience gets better for the businessmen, and then the pros are happy because the field sizes grow, and you know, and hopefully we make good enough decisions, and hopefully we catch those mistakes early, and that goes the right way, as opposed to being like, oh man, look at all those mistakes, too bad. But you know, so far I think things are working out.
So everybody's been looking from the outside in, thinking, oh, Tom plays at Triton events. It's the only events he'll play at, but what's really been happening is you've been an integral part of it from like a foundational brick from the beginning.
No, it's not that. I mean, like this summer I might play the World Series, and it's not that I won't play other events. It's more like the thought of traveling to go to some poker tournaments and deal with getting stared at for a few minutes and all that, like, it just isn't that exciting. The value's not there, the money's not there. Triton has a bunch of big games around it, you know, not just the TV games and stuff, but also some side games a lot of times. And the tournaments are obviously much bigger buy-in, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And I like the people, I like the structure, you know, and then if I'm not showing up, Paul or Richard will be like, hey, make sure you get here a day earlier, you know, go play that tournament. But I think the whole way it's handled is pretty cool. And you know, short deck's cool for tournaments, man. It's like, I think it's a cool tournament game. Partly it's new, but also it's, because the equities are all closer, I think it plays out pretty cool from a tournament standpoint, that it's like, you know, a lot of people still don't have stuff figured out. And I can tell you as someone who knows this game pretty well, I don't have the stuff figured out. And I've heard a lot of people explain how they have stuff figured out, and they definitely don't have stuff figured out.
And they don't have it figured out. You said earlier on that I wish I could think of a different word other than cool. But I think cool is the right word to use when you're talking about what's going on here and what we're creating.
Well, the reason I say try to be cool is like, to me that's kind of a concept of life, especially when it comes to gambling, of like, you can't always be right. If you're playing against someone, you're not going to tell them their mistakes or something. But just when possible, try to, you know, try to be cool. When convenient, just, and I think, you know, it seems like Triton's trying that. They're, you know, I think that's part of why you have a lot of people coming and having a little bit of a different feel.
It's definitely growing. I was going to ask you one last question, but I've got to squeeze one more in now because I can't let it go. You're going to go to the World Series?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I haven't played World Series the last few years, I might have played main event. I think 3 years ago, 4 years ago was the last time I played main event. But I played some cash there. It was just,
like I either had stuff going on, or when I was there, I was like, oh, 3-day tournament for a 10K. I don't know, but I'm gonna probably be in Vegas a bit of June and July. So it's different if I'm there for a few weeks or a month. Then I'm sure I'll hop in one of those tournaments. If I was only there for like a week over the course of the series, then I'd be like, 2 or 3 days in a tournament. That's a 10K. I'll wait. You know, that's one thing I like about Triton is it's pretty fast structure. A lot of the tournaments. I don't know.
I know the main event is actually the direct opposite of what we're doing here, because this is like very quick and easy, but the main event goes on forever. But what a memory, mate. If you did that for like 6 or 7 days and you get to that final table, is that still something that, you know, gives you a little bit of a tingle, or is that?
I mean, I'd love to go win the main event, but it's not, there's a lot of people. It's not easy.
Yeah, no.
And it is it's just like a long commitment. I know it's been a few years that I was planning on playing the main event and something would come up where I'd be like, all right, well, I'm going to need to leave day 3 even if I have chips, so I guess I'm not playing, you know.
So we're gonna see you there, but we don't know what you're gonna play yet.
I think I'll play. I'm not promising, but I think I'll play a tournament or two.
Someone get him a bracelet bet. That'll sort him out. Last question: if your childhood you could see you today, what would they think?
I think childhood me would be surprised I'm playing poker and I'm gambling, but then not be, you know, think the ways I'm thinking. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that does fit, kind of thing. Like. I had never really thought about it as a profession when I was a kid or something like that. But looking back, it's like, oh yeah, it makes sense. I think that, you know, 10-year-old me or whatever, but like, all right, yeah, I can see that. But at the time, I never thought of the concept. So.
Well, Tom, thanks for joining us on High Stakes Poker. It's been a really pleasure speaking to you. Thank you.